English class. Last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you were revising your first term portions and you have completed your midterm examination. Before that, we have started this lesson, The Girl Who Was Anne Frank. Okay, so about the first part we have completed, and now we are going to see the remaining part of this lesson. So before that, I want just revise or one recap of this lesson. Who was Anne Frank? Anne Frank was the second daughter of a businessman, Mr. Otto Frank, and they were living in Germany. And Anne Frank, she had one sister. Her name was Margaret. So they were living in Germany, very peaceful life that time. Adolf Hitler came in rule and he had released one decree, one order. It was anti-Jewish decree. So as a result, what happened? Otto Frank and his family, they shifted to, they immigrated to Netherlands. There he started one business, and his business partner, who was Mr. Van Daan. So they were living there. By that time, what happened in Netherlands also, this Hitler, he had captured Netherlands and he released one more, and he had sent one deportation to Margaret. Deportation means one person is forced to emigrate his country. So as a result, what happened? Otto Frank and Van Daan, their family decided to hide in Annex. Okay, so what was Annex? Everything I had explained in that video, and they were living about 2 years, not a complete 2 years, about 2 years. They were hiding in that Annex. Okay, so you just imagine in this Corona season also, if you cannot go to school, you cannot go to outside, and you cannot spend your time with your friends, we are feeling somewhat boring, right? So the same thing, one adolescent girl who wanted to always talk to her friends and wanted to spend her time with her friends, but Anne Frank did not get one chance to do like that. And she was feeling her loneliness, her sadness, irritation. So everything she wanted to write in her diary. So her father, he had given one birthday gift, one diary. She started to write in that her feelings, her loneliness, her feelings towards her parents. Everything she started to write. And she had compared her life to a songbird whose wings had brutally torn out. Without wings, how one bird can fly? And that bird was in the cage also. That means this Anne Frank, she cannot go outside, she cannot go to school, she cannot talk with her friends in that derelict rooms, no sufficient light, no sufficient space. She wanted to spend her time, her years in that derelict rooms. So she thought, and one day what happened? So, but after this, her death only, this Otto Frank, he read her diary. Then what happened? Here we can see in this video 3 titles: Courageous Leader, Mission in Life, Mass Appeal. And they were hiding in this annex. Suddenly, one day in 1944, one Dutch policeman and 4 Nazi policemen, they suddenly entered into this annex. They immediately asked money and this ornaments. Suddenly, this Mrs. Otto Frank and Mrs. Van Daan, they had given their money. And one policeman, he had seen this briefcase where Anne Frank had kept her diaries very secretly. And he had put all the books and papers down, but he did not get any money, so he left it. And these people, they were arrested and they were shifted to concentration camps, Nazi concentration camps. Nazi concentration camps' life was very pathetic, and the policemen, Nazi rulers, Nazi policemen, they were treating the people very cruelly. And small children, even small children, they were sent to gas chambers, and in that gas chambers they were killed. And they had no food in correct time, and they had the places in that Nazi concentration camps were not hygienic. As a result, many people, they were killed and they were dying because of this exhaustion and all. Many people they were killing. They were killed, and they shifted to concentration camp, which was in Auschwitz. The spelling you have to learn, Auschwitz. That was the last time of meeting this Otto Frank and his family members, because Otto Frank, he was shifted to one concentration camp where only men were staying, and all the ladies, they were shifted to another concentration camp. How this Nazi people, they were taking these people to this concentration camps, they were carrying in cattle trucks. Cattle trucks, we know how the people, how the cattle were filled in that cattle trucks, and they cannot take a breath also. So the same way they were treating these human beings like animals, and they were carrying in that cattle trucks, and they were shifted to Auschwitz and in two camps for gents and for ladies. So after that, what happened? After a few days, a few weeks, this Mrs. Otto Frank, she had got exhaustion and she had died in that concentration camp. Anne Frank, she was a courageous leader in that concentration camp. How the writer is telling about her that courage. So many times these people, the small children, they were not getting food in correct time in concentration camp. So this Anne Frank, she was a courageous girl. She directly, boldly, she went into the concentration kitchen, and she was asking food, and she was always telling to her sister Margaret, we should not give up, we have to ask, because this is our right to get food from here. And she was asking like that, and she was feeling pity on the poor children who were standing in the freezing rain nakedly, and those who wanted to send to the gas chambers. You just imagine, small children, they are going to gas chambers and they were killed. So these cruelties, one 13 years old girl, she was facing in her life. Now we are getting one small pain in our leg or hand, or if your parents are scolding us, we will feel bad and we will react somewhat, okay. But here you just imagine that girl, poor girls, okay, how they were not only children, they were in that concentration camps, how much they faced in their life. So we can go to this heading, courageous leader. So now this is a reading time. Take your book and follow my reading. On August 4, 1944, one German and 4 Dutch Nazi policemen suddenly stormed upstairs. How the secret of Annex had been revealed is not known. Where are your money and jewels? And they shouted. Mrs. Frank and Mrs. Van Damme had some gold and jewelry. It was quickly discovered. Looking round for something to carry it in, one of the policemen noticed Otto Frank's briefcase. He emptied it onto the floor, barely giving a glance at the notebooks. Then the people of Annex were arrested. In the beginning of September, while the Allied armies were rapidly approaching the Netherlands, the Franks and Van Dammes and the dentist were carried in cattle trucks to Auschwitz, the Nazi death camp in southern Poland. Where was this Auschwitz camp? In Poland. There the Nazis separated Otto Frank from his wife and daughters without giving them time to say farewell. Mrs. Frank, Anne and Margaret were marched into the women's part of the camp, where Mrs. Frank died from exhaustion. How Mrs. Frank died? Because of exhaustion. The Van Dynes and the dentist too lost their lives. So Mrs. Van Dyne and Mr. Van Dyne and that dentist also, they were died. Anne proved to be a courageous leader of a small Auschwitz group. When there was nothing to eat, she dared to go to the kitchen to ask for food. She constantly told Margaret never to give in. Once she passed hundreds of Hungarian Jewish children who were standing naked in the freezing rain, waiting to be led to the gas chambers, unable to grasp the horrors inflicted upon them into the world of adults. Oh, look, their eyes, she whispered. Later in the autumn, she and her sister were transported to another camp, Belsen. That camp's name you have to keep it in your mind. That is Belsen, Belsen camp. Okay, Belsen, which was in between Berlin and Hamburg. A close friend saw her there, cold and hungry, her head shaved and her skeleton-like form draped in the coarse, shapeless, striped garb of the concentration camp. She was pitifully weak, her body racked by typhoid fever. She died early in March 1945, a few days after Margaret. Both were buried in a mass grave. So here you see, and how her death was, Anne Frank. She died in Belsen camp. And after her death, these German people, the Jewish people, they had got release from this concentration camp. And one friend, she had seen her last days of this Anne Frank, how she was cold and hungry, her head was shaved, and her skeleton-like form draped in a coarse, shapeless, striped garb of concentration camp. And because of fever, she had got this, she became a skeleton-like a form, and she had lost her life. And she died in March 1945. Before that, her sister also had died. You see, okay, see, not seeing the parents. Her mother also had expired there, and her sister after that, she had got a hygiene, that fever in that unhygienic place. She had lost her life. In Auschwitz, Otto Frank had managed somehow to stay alive. He was freed early in 1945 by the Russians, and in the summer he arrived back in liberated Amsterdam. So they stayed there, and he released from there and he reached in Amsterdam. A friend had told him that his wife had died, but he kept on hoping that Anne and Margaret will come back. See, the feelings of one father, and he had heard his wife had expired, his wife had died, but he was expecting his daughters, both of them will come back. But last he had got that message, his daughters also died. You just imagine how one father can accept all these news, okay? Yes. After 6 weeks of waiting, he met someone who had told him that both had perished. It was only then that Miep, his former typist, handed him Anne's diaries. So they had heard Anne Frank and Margaret Frank, they had lost their life in concentration camp. That time, Otto Frank's typist, her name was Miep. This name you have to keep it in mind, students. Miep. Miep, she had heard and she had brought Anne's diary. And how this Miep, she had got his this Anne Frank's diary, that we can see in the next heading, Mission in Life. Mission in Life. After the arrest of Otto Frank's family, okay, when they were arrested, after that arrest, Miep, Otto Frank's typist, very boldly she had entered into this annex when they were arrested and when they were shifted to Auschwitz concentration camp. And she had seen some papers lying on the floor and she identified Anne Frank's handwriting. And she had kept all the books in one and book safely. And when she heard the death of Anne Frank, she returned everything back to this Otto Frank. And the writer is telling she did not read any words of that diary. It was good because this Anne Frank, she had written her all her experiences and those who had helped her in that while they were living in this annex, everything she was writing. If maybe she had written what will happen, she could have given, could have destroyed that papers or that diary. But she did not read and she everything gave back. And Otto Frank, he had lost his wife and his daughters. He started to read his daughter's diary. When he was turning all the pages, every time his heart was broken. And one adolescent girl, her experiences, everything she was writing. And some of her pages she had written, she wished to publish this one. So Anne Frank, Otto Frank, what he had done, when his mother went to Switzerland to his relatives, he had written manuscripts, had made manuscripts for that his mother to read it. And he wished and he had approached some editors, publishers to publish it. But some of them rejected and last one man was ready and he was a professor and he published one article in Dutch newspaper. And after that many publishers were ready and they started to make many copies and it became a very popular book in this Germany. So we can see that mission in life. What was the mission of Otto Frank? That we can see in this title. A week after Frank family had been arrested, Miep had boldly returned to the annex. A heap of papers lay on the floor. Miep recognized Anne's handwriting and decided to keep the diary but not to read it. Had she read it, she would have found detailed information on the help she and other people had given the Frank family at the risk of their own lives. She might well have decided to destroy Anne's diary for reasons of safety. It took Otto Frank many weeks to finish reading what his dead child had written. He broke down after every few pages. As his older mother was still alive, she had emigrated to Switzerland where other near relatives lived. He started copying the manuscripts to her. Some passages which he felt it to be too intimate, which might hurt other people's feelings, were left out by him. The idea of publishing the diary did not enter his mind. He gave one typed copy to a close friend who lent to a professor of modern history. Much to Otto Frank's surprise, the professor devoted an article to it in a Dutch newspaper. His friends now urged Otto Frank to have Anne's diary published as she herself had wished. In one passage she had written, "I want to publish a book entitled The Annex After the War." Okay, so she wished to publish her diary, The Annex After the War. So what was the wish, or what was the title she wished to give her book? The Annex After the War. And my diary can serve this purpose. When Anne's father finally consented to publication, the manuscript was refused by two well-known Dutch publishers. A third decided to accept it and he sold more than 150,000 copies of the Dutch edition. Other editions followed. 25 lakh sold in Britain, a like number in Japan, 43 lakh, 4 lakh 35,000 in the United States. Otto Frank began to receive hundreds of letters, one from Italy, and was addressed Otto Frank, father of Anne Frank. So, one letter he had got, the address was written like this: Mr. Otto Frank, father of Anne Frank, Amsterdam. A few people doubted the authenticity. Authenticity of diary means who is the author or whether it is real or not. Most wrote to express their admiration and grief. Girls of Anne's age poured out their troubles. Oh, Mr. Frank, wrote one girl, she is so much like me that sometimes I do not know where myself begins and Anne Frank ends. So one girl, she has written one letter to Otto Frank. And while they were reading this diary, the feelings of this Anne Frank, one adolescent girl, the girls which are in the same age, they couldn't control. So they started to write Otto Frank their feelings. Okay. Yes. Numerous people sent small presents. Some exquisite dolls were made for him by Japanese girls. A Dutch sculptoress presented him as with a statue of Anne. On the birthdays of Anne and Margaret, flowers arrived anonymously. So many letters poured in that Otto Frank was forced to retire from business. Actually, while publishing this small diary, what happened? Many reactions. They started to write letters to Otto Frank. So he was not getting time to do his business. So he left his business and he spent his time to read these letters and to write reply to these letters. The care of his daughter's diary had become his passion, his mission in life. That is this title. What is the mission of Otto Frank? What was the mission? Caring of his daughter's diary and to publish it. And all royalties were devoted to humanitarian causes which he felt would have been approved by Anne. All letters were answered by him personally. He started to write each and every letters. Every day new ones sadly reminded him the losses he had suffered. Every day when he was getting each letters, he started to think about his daughters, his wife, and what great loss he had got in his life. Just imagine, actually after the death of our relatives or our close relatives or anyone, we always and we will try to forget them. Okay, or day by day what will happen? Automatically we will forget them. But here see, after the loss of his daughters, every day one or the other thing, through one or the other thing, Otto Frank was thinking again and again about his daughters. When you are reading this, we have to feel that, okay, so you just imagine that condition of that father. But he felt that there was truth and consolation in what the headmistress of one of England's largest schools wrote to him. It must be a source of deep joy to you, this publication. Your daughter's diary, it should be a joy to you in all your sorrow, to know that Anne's brief life is, in the deepest sense, only just the beginning. The most remarkable response came from Germany, where these people, they were getting so much cruelties, the Jewish people. So from Germany also this Otto Frank had got one reply. What was that? When the book's first printing of 4,500 copies came out in Germany in 1950, many booksellers were afraid to put it in their windows. See, that means she was writing about the cruelties of the German, racial problems, okay, racial difference, and people, they are separating, differentiating people basis of race, actually Anne Frank, she was questioning this racial prejudice. Okay, she was questioning, and she was asking about all this. Okay, questioning this, the rulers of Germany, what they were doing against this Jewish people. And so this is the mission in life. Actually, after the response of the people from different areas, different places, different countries, Otto Frank, he decided to keep or protect his daughter's diary. It became a passion and a mission in his life. Okay students, once again you have to read it, and in the next video you can see the remaining part of this lesson. Okay.